and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing fine, aside from those comments I heard from Evan Neal, what he said. How dare he insult us Giant fans like that? I just feel hurt like that, the way what he said. Because I can tell you, we're not soft like that, all right? We were just tough on him, all right? We were just upset at what happened at the game.
Dan, you are 100% right, and I love seeing you coming firing out of these gates on all cylinders, because that's exactly what I wanted to kick the show off with this week, because those comments were just made public this afternoon. And man, I'm telling you right now, we don't do this segment very often, but every once in a while, somebody will be worthy of the award of Idiot of the Week. And this guy is Idiot of the Week, as struggling Giants right tackle Evan Neal tells New York Giant fans to boo louder. He dared Giant fans to boo louder and said that they are fair weather fans and sheep. Now, look, no matter who said a statement like this, it's not going to go over well. But at least if it was a guy like Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley, who you can't imagine either of those guys saying anything like that ever because they're professionals, at least you could say to yourself, well, at least it's coming from a player that's accomplished something in this league. Evan Neal right now for the Giants is going to go down as, so far in his career, unless he picks things up, as a first-round bust that never lived up to his draft position, and that really has hurt the Giants' offensive line in a time where he really has been needed to step up and be an anchor for them. So for him to come out here and run his mouth on Giant fans like that, Dan, that is such a bad look for a guy who still hasn't accomplished anything in this league.
Yeah, that's just, I can't believe this guy's like a rookie, and how dare he insults us Giant fans like that. He is just worthy of that Idiot of the Week award. And all I can say is I'm disgusted at that, what he said.
Yeah, because you know what? This isn't the first time that we've seen a New York athlete open their mouth or do something derogatory towards fans. I mean, we all remember a couple of years ago, the whole thing with Javi Baez on the Mets, and even Francisco Lindor did participate in it a little bit too. The whole thumbs down because they were disapproving of Mets fans. It's like, hey, professional athletes, we don't want to boo you, because guess what? Believe it or not, we're fans of the team that you're playing for. We want to root for you. So the fact of the matter is, just give us something to root for. Give us something to be happy about and cheer you for. It's not going to, you cannot expect a New York fan to respond favorably to anything like this. And he deserves, Evan Neal, to get booed out of the building for the next Giants home game. I know they're in Miami next week. I think they host Buffalo the week after that. But whenever the next Giant home game is, Evan Neal deserves to get booed out of the stadium, because these are insane comments. And this is a guy who, in my opinion, might have just made his bed, in possibly the NFL, but, definitely at least New York. I see this guy, he could possibly be gone by the trade deadline if he doesn't shut his mouth. If he keeps his mouth shut and plays decent for the rest of the year, maybe they'll find a way to unload him after this regular season. But man, if things keep going the way they are right now, and this guy continues to be a bust and continues to open his mouth, the Giants could be in the market for getting this guy off the team for whatever cost. Similar to how the Giants picked up Isaiah Simmons for a 7th-round pick. Well, maybe they'll be trading this stiff for a 7th-round pick too, just to get him off the roster and have one less headache in that locker room.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like he'll get booed next week because even though they're on the road in Miami, plenty of New Yorkers, plenty of snowbirds in Florida.
You know what? I didn't even think about that, actually. That's a really good point. There's definitely going to be a large contingent of Giant fans in Miami, just as there always are Jets fans, because, like you said, we always have our New York transplants down there in Florida, especially in the Miami area. So you're definitely going to get a large base of Giant fans there. And yeah, you're probably right. They're probably going to boo the crap out of Evan Neal. And, look, there's obviously frustration with the Giants. They came out on Monday Night Football. They lost that tough 24-3 game to the Seahawks. Obviously things didn't look good, so maybe that frustration is starting to boil over in the Giants locker room. And the thing that these athletes too have to realize is that, when you play in the NFL, like we just said, you're a professional athlete. And the key word there is professional, and you have to conduct yourself in that manner. When you're a fan, there's nothing professional about that, unless you're dummies like me and you talking on the internet or talking on the radio and all this stuff. That's a different story. But if you're just a fan at the stadium, you're not a professional. So you're gonna be emotional and you're gonna boo when things aren't going well. And hey, guys, guess what? So far, the New York Football Giants have played 2 home games and they've scored 3 points. I mean, that's unacceptable. And Evan Neal is a part of the offense and the offensive line that's not doing their job. So what do you expect? Giants, if you play badly, you're going to get booed. And Evan Neal has to also know that if you figure things out and, get this team to the playoffs and win the ultimate goal, you will be a legend in this city forever. I mean, let's look back at the history books, Dan. Coming into that 2007 season, that New York Giant offensive line was not the lockdown, one of the top 5 or at least 10 offensive lines in football. They were a much maligned offensive line that a lot of people really didn't have confidence in. And then all of a sudden in 2007, something clicked. And those guys, for the next 4 or 5 years that they remained together, were one of the best, most dominant offensive lines in football. That could happen this year if the right things happen. Once we have the Giants injuries, and a lot of those injuries, as we could see here, are to that offensive line. Andrew Thomas is out. John Michael Schmitz is banged up. Obviously, also on the injured list right now is tight end Daniel Bellinger. All listed as doubtful. But the fact of the matter is, Evan Neal is probably the best guy, or should be the best guy on that offensive line right now. And he has to step up and be the rock for those guys, right? Turning around and running your mouth like this against the fans is not helping in any way. It's only making your job harder.
Yeah, exactly. They need to step up, all right? There's still time. They could step up. I mean, they could. We saw in 2007. They got off to a sluggish start, and we know how that ended. So they need to do this right now, or before it's too late.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they need to have one of the offensive linemen marry Brian Daboll's daughter, if he has one, because I heard an interview recently with I forget which Giant from that team it was, and they specifically pointed out the fact that obviously Chris Snee is Tom Coughlin's son-in-law, and one of the Giants was talking about how much more of a relatable coach and more fun coach to be around. Tom Coughlin was starting in that 2007 season. Once Chris Nee was now a family member of his, and he had his grandkids running around practice. So they kind of saw a different side of Tom Coughlin than they expected. Now, granted, Brian Daboll is not nearly as old as Coughlin, so maybe his daughter isn't quite in the marrying age yet. But hey, it's something to keep your eye on, because that camaraderie really went a long way for that Giants team. And, it'd be nice to have something that galvanizes them this year and brings them all together, especially with the slew of injuries that they've had. One guy that's coming back from injury who was actually spotted at practice today for the Giants doing reps by himself was Saquon Barkley. Now, that's a good sign, right, Dan? I mean, if the Giants are going to do anything, Saquon's going to be, right in the middle of everything.
That is a game changer right there. I might have a little bit more faith in the Giants going into Sunday's game, if that's the case. We got if Barkley is good to go on Sunday.
Yeah, well, that's still up in the air. That's still to be determined, because even though he did practice today, he was not in a contact jersey, so there's still it's still up in the air. And to be determined by the Giants training staff. But hey, even if he doesn't play on Sunday, just seeing him on the field, that he's getting closer. Like, at least, even if it's not this Sunday, maybe he'll be back the following Sunday against the Bills, or and then the Giants will have a chance to bring him back up to game speed. But hey, just seeing him on that practice field to begin with, that's a step in the right direction.
Yep, it is. That's a step in the right direction. Hopefully, we're going to see him Sunday or the week after over in Buffalo.
Yeah, absolutely. Because now these games, the Giants are in the same position as the Jets, and we'll start to, talk about the Jets in a minute too. But the Giants are in a position where these next two games are really going to determine their season, because these two games the Giants play, as we see, in Miami this Sunday at 1 p.m. They play the Bills the following week. So two big AFC East matchups the Giants have, and they cannot lose both of them. If you lose both those games, then the Giants are 1-5, and you can pretty much stick a fork, and then the season's over. I know that doesn't necessarily mean that, but look, you'd have to get exceptionally hot to overcome a 1-5 start. And it's the same thing with the Jets that we're going to talk about in a minute. Why, when the Jets play Denver on Sunday, it's so important for them too, because they play the Eagles the week after that. And, the odds are that they're probably going to lose that game. The Eagles are a really good team. And the Jets would be in the same spot. If they lose to Denver on Sunday and they lose to the Eagles, they're 1-5. Season's over. Buried. Bye-bye. So the Giants are in the same spot, and they know they have to win at least one of these next two games, because you can pull yourself up from 2-4. You can figure out a way to win the winnable games on your schedule, when the Giants are fully healthy again. But, man, that's just why this game is so meaningful, because, the last thing we want, or the last thing you'd want as a Giants fan, is to be 1-5 after your first 6 games, right?
Exactly. It's the last thing I need. Just do another beer to get through the football season, like I did with baseball season.
Exactly, man. So a lot of stuff going on with the Giants right now, and it's going to be, in my opinion, this is really the first big test for Brian Daboll, because this is the first time that we've seen in his tenure, some rocky waters. So it's going to be real interesting to see how the Giants head guy, goes up against that and tries to keep his boys together. And on the other side of MetLife, the day before that, the Giants were on Monday Night Football, the Jets on Sunday Night Football. As out of the corner of my eye, by the way, I see the Jets Will Cully went out and the Jets. The New York Rangers, hockey we're talking about now, ladies and gentlemen. They're playing a preseason game right now against the Devils, and Will Cully just went out and scored to cut the Devil lead in half, 2-1. So some preseason hockey going on tonight. We'll get into a little bit of hockey at the end of the show, too, because a bunch of stuff going on there with new head coach Peter Laviolette running things. But as we turn our attention to the Jets, so they come out and just look really, really ugly in the first quarter of this Sunday night football game, where it was 17-0, and all you heard was about the stupid Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce crap, and oh, great, the Swifties, and how many Instagram followers did Travis Kelce gain, and all this stupid crap that NBC could not wait to shove down our throats. But then guess what? Yeah, continue, Dan.
I was annoyed by it. These Swifties do not belong at a football game. Unless you're a fan of one of the two teams, why were they buying these tickets? And it was like, I think prices for these tickets to go up on resale sites because of it. I mean, what a stupid reason to go to a game because they're a Swiftie and one of the players is dating Taylor Swift. What the fuck is wrong with me? Going to the game. This is a football game. It's for fans of one of the two teams, not for some Swifties, right? What? And plus, why you even got? What's the point of going if you're not really going to see Taylor Swift at all in the stadium, right? It's like you're not gonna see her. It's not like she's performing at halftime. She's just in the stands like anyone else because she's dating one of the players. Big deal. Spend your money elsewhere, you Swifties. You're not really into this.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And that was ridiculous with how NBC was completely playing up that Taylor Swift crap. And then, the great part about it, though, was that in the second quarter, a football game broke out. And it wasn't just a Chiefs track meet, as they, to use a new term, boat race the Jets that first quarter. They didn't get a chance to do that after that because the Chiefs were held by the Jets defense to just 6 points after that. And Zack Wilson went out and shockingly, I cannot say shockingly enough because I have not seen Zack Wilson look anything like this in the previous 24, 25 starts he had before this. But there were actual signs of life from Zack Wilson. 22 of 28. I'm sorry. It was 27 of 39. I don't know what I saw that. And 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He did have the costly fumble that turned the ball over to the Chiefs. But look, that was that was an offensive line breakdown too, where as soon as the kid looked up, he had a defender right in his face. So I'm not going to kill him for that, especially with how good he looked for the rest of the game. And by the way, maybe if the referees didn't fuck the Jets every week, maybe things would be going a little bit better. Are they going to send the Jets a nice little handwritten apology note again, just like they did after the Dallas game, where once again the Jets got fucked by the referees, and just after the Patriots game, like the Jets got fucked by the referees? It seems like the only game the Jets didn't get fucked by the referees was week 1 against the Bills, when the football gods decided to fuck the Jets and injured Aaron Rodgers for the season. So either way, the Jets are getting it at both ends. And yeah.
Say about those referees, all right? An apology letter isn't enough to send to the Jets for messing up that call. I think they need to go a little bit. It's going to cost them more of a bigger apology to mess up a team two times like that. Those zebras maybe need to get one of those, those mail order steaks for each member of the team. Those Omaha steaks.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think they should with, hey, sorry that you're 1-3 because of our shitty call. Now look, to be honest, I don't want to sit here and say the Jets would have 100% beaten the Chiefs if the referees had made the proper call. For those that don't understand what we're talking about right now, with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter and on 3rd and 20, which, by the way, was the second third and long on that drive. One, Patrick Mahomes converted for on a 25-yard run that should have been called back because there was offensive holding where Jeremiah Johnson had the offensive lineman literally had him around his neck, and Johnson's waving his arms, and you can see the referees didn't make that call. Patrick Mahomes got away with that one for a 25-yard run. And then they actually called on that. That was 3rd and 25. This was 3rd and 20, where Patrick Mahomes ends up Sauce Gardner gets called for defensive holding. Absolutely ridiculous call. If you see, you can even go on Sauce's Twitter account and see him break down the footage on his Twitter there, how there was not defensive holding, how there was some pushbacks and everything, which, by the way, Garrett Wilson was getting mugged on the sideline of the drive before that. No flag. Let the boys play. Until it looks like maybe the Jets could upset Patrick Mahomes, the NFL's golden boy. Yeah, so, obviously that phantom defensive holding call held the Jets back, continued that Patrick Mahomes drive, allowed them to kick the go-ahead field goal and end up winning that game 23-20, as the Jets would never get the ball back thanks to the bogus call of the officials. Now, that's the thing that really bothers me, Dan. It's that not that I think the Jets 100% would have won, and come back, and all of a sudden Zack Wilson's John Elway leading the Jets to back to a big win and en route to a championship. It's just the fact that the referees single-handedly took their ability to have one last shot to win the game out of their hands. You know what I mean? Like, I would have at least liked to see Zack Wilson with a chance to win the ball game,
Yeah, exactly. I kind of understand exactly what you would have liked to have seen, but unfortunately, that the refs pretty much gave more reason why I would advise, and why, if I had a daughter, I would never let her marry an umpire or a referee.
Yep. Well said, man. Well said. And, one other thing that was very interesting that came out today, it wasn't today, but it was earlier this week, is that Aaron Rodgers in 2023. Now, on Sunday Night Football, the sideline reporter, I forget her name, I want to say Tracy Wolfson or somebody like that, was doing, her typical shtick, the sideline reporting gig, and she was given some kind of, talk about the Jets and everything, and then she mentioned Rodgers, and she said that Rodgers made clear his intention was to play again in 2023. Now, I feel like with everything else going on that night, that flew under the radar and didn't get as much of attention as you had thought it would. I mean, I don't know if people really didn't necessarily believe it that much or what the case was, because to be honest, me and I, would love to see him come back again. Even after I heard that, I really didn't think too much about it. However, yesterday on the Pat McAfee show, Aaron Rodgers was the guest, as he is most Tuesdays, unless they have to juggle it around for whatever reason. But yesterday, he was in his normal spot. And, man, they had a really interesting conversation with Rodgers about the falsehoods and truths about the way he is attacking his rehab and the way that he had his surgery done. And, I mean, this is a guy who they said for most people who get this surgery done, you're not even going to be putting on a pair of shoes because of the pain and everything, and how your leg is all swelled up and everything from surgery. So they say most people don't even put on a pair of shoes until about 6 to 8 weeks after the surgery. Aaron Rodgers has been wearing shoes since 13 days after the surgery. Aaron Rodgers is ahead of rehab in every aspect, and he specifically said he will play again in 2023. I believe it, and I went from being very skeptical to barely even thinking about it or listening to it on Sunday, to now here we are on Wednesday night filming the show, Dan. I don't know why, but I really believe we're going to see Aaron Rodgers again this year. And I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. I think there's a really good chance that's going to happen. What do you think about that, Dan?
It looks like that could be a possibility. I guess I would take Aaron Rodgers' word for it. I guess he found who knows whatever doctors he found, but he found doctors that maybe managed to speed up this rehab process that he could be back during the regular season. I mean, there was a few weeks we were saying, yeah, it's a question mark if the Jets make the playoffs, but he might be back during the regular season. I mean, more power to him if he's able to pull it off.
Yeah. I mean, because you're right too. They did mention the doctor he went to, Dr. Neil Alchek, who is one of the greatest surgeons in the world. He's world renowned for the things that he's done in this field. And yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, has been pointing to the case of Cam Akers coming back in about 4.5 or 5 months, and he's a running back. And the fact of the matter is that, even hearing Rodgers talk about how he has been rehabbing, and one of the guys that he is rehabbing with is J.K. Dobbins, the Baltimore Ravens running back, who the week after Rodgers tore his ACL, his Achilles, and is out for the year. So he had the same exact injury as Rodgers. Those two are rehabbing together. And Rodgers is even talking about how, Cam Akers, who is also a running back, came back in 4.5, 5 months, and that his timeline would be much shorter than that of a running back. He was even saying that Dobbins' timeline is a little bit, he's definitely looking at 2024 to come back. But for a quarterback and a guy that doesn't necessarily have to put that much stress on, the leg like that, because you're not running, and, all he has to do is really just plant his leg and throw. The hardest thing will be taking hits, but I mean, they even said that there really isn't much worry in that. So, hey, it's kind of a possibility that this guy could be back again this year, man. And I heard somebody say that the date that they have circled internally is Thanksgiving. Now, I think Thanksgiving is still too early, but if you ask me, the thing that I've looked at is, if you look at the Jets' schedule now, so they get Denver this week, and then they have the Eagles the week after that. After that, they go on their bye, so they have a week just to chill and get healthy and figure out all that kind of stuff. So no matter what happens, they got that. They come back from the bye, and they get the Giants, they get the Chargers on Monday Night Football, and they get the Vegas Raiders. So you figure, coming out of this stretch, one way or another, the Jets should be in the range of it. If everything goes according to plan, and if Zack Wilson is able to remain a passable quarterback by any stretch, you can figure the Jets to be right around 500, 4-5, 5-4. Then they have their tough stretch, because they do play the Bills and Dolphins back-to-back weeks, which is going to be tough. But after that, it opens up again. They get the Texans, they get the Atlanta Falcons, and the date I have circled on my for me is Sunday, December 17th in Miami. That's the date. I don't know why. For some reason, that really sticks out to me. I feel like Thanksgiving, a couple of weeks, maybe too early. December 17th, right before Christmas, four games left in the season. They would play, let me see. They have, obviously, they play Miami. Then they have the Thursday night game against the Cleveland Browns, which, that's going to be tough. Cleveland still is a good team. And, they also play the Commanders, and they finish up the year against the Patriots. So, man, I'm telling you, I don't know why, but that December 17th game against Miami, coming back for those last 4 games, it for some reason it just speaks to me. I mean, what do you think about that, Dan? Do you think that's crazy?
I think that's crazy, but if Aaron Rodgers can pull it off, more power to him. Well, if what going how you hope it would, you would have to hope that the Giants. I meant that the Jets still remain in a still remain in contention. Just hold up right there with a striking distance until Aaron Rodgers can come back, and it could go up from there.
Oh yeah, Dan, and you're 100% right. This all depends. This entire conversation we just had all depends on if if Rodgers, I'm sorry, not Rodgers, if Zack Wilson and the Jets can win enough games to make it mean something and make sense for Rodgers to come back this year. Otherwise, it'll be like a Edwin Diaz thing for the Mets this year, where they weren't close, so it wasn't worth risking his health. It'll be the same thing at Rodgers. If Wilson has the Jets around 6 or 7 wins by the time, December 17th rolls around, it wouldn't surprise me to see Aaron Rodgers come riding in on that white horse. So, a lot of interesting stuff ahead, Dan. I mean, who would have thought we'd be having conversations like that? And just to wrap up on the Jets too, they play the Broncos, as we mentioned, 4:25 p.m. So if you're wondering what our Patreon schedule is going to be, Dan, let's just hammer this out right now. I'm thinking since the Jets and the Giants play back-to-back, we'll hold off the pre-show until after both games are complete. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a better idea. That's for once, we had for once, because we have a time that they play on the same day, we can actually just do one show this week instead of the NFL putting in this scheduling that we have to put extra shows this week. We have it packed up to one super episode for both the Giants fans and the Jets fans.
Exactly. So if you want to come and see our thoughts on the Giants playing the Dolphins and the Jets playing the Broncos, please do us a favor and yourself and subscribe to our Patreon. It's only $5. You get a whole bunch of extra content. A lot of fun stuff is up there. So if you get the opportunity, don't hesitate and please subscribe to our Patreon. Patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. So thanks everybody for supporting us on that endeavor. We really appreciate it. And to keep it rolling along here, we'll turn our attention to the Mets for a few minutes now, Dan. I know our audience is shocked by that. We got the Mets officially hiring David Stearns earlier this week. What are your early impressions of Stearns, Dan? The guy's a lifelong Met fan coming into his dream job right now. What are your feelings about that?
I feel David Stearns was a great hire by Steve Cohen. I feel Stearns has a lot of credibility with Milwaukee. Of course, Milwaukee was a small market, so it was limited budget. I feel he's going to one up what he did in Milwaukee because he'll have a bigger budget of Steve Cohen. So I feel there's going to be nothing but great things. The one flaw I have to say is that I don't really agree with the decision to fire Buck Showalter. I feel like there was a bunch of things that Buck really had no control over. This team was trying to. Unfortunately, this team had no pitching, and unfortunately, we were in a situation where, and of course, the bullpen, especially Diaz injury, it was like, don't blame Buck. I don't know why. I guess it was just a new GM just felt he just wanted somebody he hired to manage the team. Unfortunately, but it's unfortunate. I thought Buck had a lot of credibility. All I can say is that I hope that the situation with Buck Showalter plays out the way it did when after he managed the Yankees, how they won the World Series the year after he got fired, and same thing happened in Arizona 1 year after he got fired. They won the World Series. I can only hope that maybe that weird thing that Buck Showalter comes up 1 year short of the big pro happens here in Flushing.
Yeah, let's hope so. Unfortunately, it didn't happen in his last two stops with the Rangers and Orioles. But hey, let's hope he picks it up again here with the Mets. With that, you know, the team winning the year after he's gone. But hey, Buck, I think he was done wrong. 176 and 148. Say what you want. That's one of the best winning percentages any Met manager has ever had, and that's including a year that he turned around and had this crappy team that finished 12 games under 500. So, and I agree with what you said too. This was not Buck Showalter's fault that this team faltered. In fact, I give Buck a lot of credit for keeping this team together through a lot of these hard times. And there were a lot of them this year, especially when the team kind of realized that, things weren't going to change and they weren't going to be making any big deals. They traded Dave Robertson. Then they traded, all those pieces, Verlander and Scherzer. And, so the list goes on and on. Buck didn't have anything to do with any of that. You mentioned too, it's not Buck's fault that Drew Peterson and Tyler McGill didn't decide to start pitching until August. It's not his fault that Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso didn't decide to start hitting until July. So, I think Buck got a tough deal. And another thing why I thought it was kind of a bad move to fire Buck in this fashion is because there's so much to do with this Mets roster, with the front office moves, with guys that Stearns wants to bring in, that why would you want adding a new, finding a new manager to that list of things to do? You know what I mean? It feels like you already had a professional manager who everybody liked and who made the team better, and you could have just said, hey, let's see what Buck does with the team this year. If they perform well, great, we'll keep Buck around. If not, we'll move on. Unfortunately, they didn't even give him that chance. So I guess David Stearns wanted a clean slate. And I'll say this too, that he does deserve that David Stearns is the new guy calling the shots. So he does deserve the ability to pick his own guy. But I just think it was a bad decision. If I was David Stearns, sure, my preference would be to hire my guy, but you can always put that off a year or two, unless he did not like Buck Showalter. So I don't know how you could do that. Buck was fantastic for his time here. So he won Manager of the Year last year. He won 101 games for the Mets last year. He just didn't turn into a crappy manager overnight. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous the way that a lot of Met fans, and I see a lot of Met fans, have turned on him and another guy, Pete Alonso, too. Now, I will say this. I saw a couple of polls indicating that most Met fans are still in his corner, but the media, I saw Brandon Tierney and all these guys who aren't Met fans and don't really give a shit about the Mets are talking about they're pushing this whole trade Pete Alonso narrative. And the fan base is strongly against it. I saw 85% in a poll did not want, and by the way, a poll of it was well over well over 2,500 people, and 85% of the Met fans did not want him to be traded.
Well, I gotta say one thing about this media: shut the fuck up. This freaking press, all right? There's no indication that anything on the Mets are wanting to trade Alonso. If anything, they're trying to hopefully convince him to stay. We don't know if it's gonna work, but hopefully they'll be able to pull it off. But shut the fuck up, fans. These media, no, all right. Stop pushing to freaking trade Pete Alonso. They have no clue how much of this guy has. This guy's been playing with his heart on his sleeves. If anything, teammates have been sticking up for him, and they've said this guy isn't just a guy to pick up numbers. I mean, he's a team player. He's pushing himself for not just for him to put up stats. He wants to do what he can for his team to win.
Yeah, I totally agree. Pete Alonso is the type of guy that you would kill to have on your team. Yankee fans, I know obviously they have Judge, but Yankee fans would kill to have a first baseman like Pete Alonso that you could just plug in there and plays pretty good defense and hits 40-plus home runs regularly. You know, 3 of the Mets' best home run seasons of all time all belong to Pete Alonso. So it's really just crazy to me when you look around and there are any Met fans that would be pushing for Pete Alonso to get traded. The fact that there were even 15% that thought he should get traded is even too much for me. He is the best hitter the Mets have ever produced. If the Mets give Pete Alonso the extension he deserves, he will own every single offensive record the Mets have, except maybe Jose Reyes' stolen base record. I don't see him touching that. But other than that, he's going to own every record. He's already in the top 4 of home run hitters all time. He's it just is crazy to me that we're even having this conversation. And the one thing I will say that's a good thing with David Stearns, no matter what you want to say about him, is that I think he put a lot of those rumors to rest the other day, even though, like we said, the media is still trying to push this shit. But at Stearns' press conference the other day, he said that he fully expects Pete Alonso to be the Mets opening day first baseman. And he also said that when, you are thinking about a potential trade or not trading a guy, you take everything into consideration, the type of player he is, the type of, reaction he gets from the fan base and how much people love him and how much his clubhouse loves him. And David Stearns said that everything in those is in Pete Alonso's favor. And so got to love that. At least that's something that, we can hope that is starting to dissipate right now, because the media is still trying to push it. But if the Mets traded Pete Alonso, unless they got some ridiculous package that is just so out of the realm of possibility of even thinking about it right now, okay, that might be worth it. But 9 times out of 10, when you trade a star for prospects, those prospects don't even make it to the majors. Did you know that of all the prospects, they did a study of all the prospects that were traded to teams at the trade deadline over the last 20 years for all these star players, right? Of all the prospects that were traded, less than 20% actually made the major leagues for over 20 years. So, the odds are, if you get 5 guys back, one of them, if you're lucky, will make it to the playoffs. And the thing about the Mets is they've been waiting so long to have a guy like Pete Alonso. If you trade him, the only thing you'd be hoping is that you could get a guy just like Pete Alonso. So you know what? How about you cut out the middleman and just give him the extension that he's earned, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. Pay the man.
Pay the man. Show him the money. That's all we want to say.
Yep, exactly.
And
exactly. This guy, I feel like this guy. How can you? I want to get this guy is on his on pace. We could potentially see him down the line. Hopefully, maybe we'll also see a couple of championship banners down the line. But also, we will see a number 20 hanging with the retired numbers up there with the retired numbers of the Mets greats of the past.
Number 20, yeah. If all things hold up, and I mean, he's the new David Wright. So I agree with you. He should, one day, if he keeps up and the numbers are there, and maybe we got a championship banger hanging, just like you said, number 20 should be up in those rafters. And we're talking about showing Pete Alonso the money. One other thing that I was very skeptical about after we heard, Billy Epler and Steve Cohen at the deadline saying that Met fans should lessen their expectations for next year and that there's not going to be quite as much star power, and that they apparently told Max Scherzer that they were looking more to 2025 rather than 2024 for trying to compete, which in my eyes is 1,000,000% unacceptable for our new billionaire owner to even be thinking that, much less saying it out loud. But this is very encouraging, Dan, because I was just reading a report the other day that was saying that right now the Mets are expected by a lot of higher ups in Major League Baseball to have the highest offer on the table for Ohtani, which is all I ask of the Mets. Look, I want them to sign him, even with the injury. It's worth it. Just pay the man his money, let him get healthy, and bring him in. But I was very actually shocked to see that report with the way that Epler and Cohen were talking in the middle of the season. So what is your reaction to seeing that, Dan?
Well, I think at that time, I think they were just eager to cut their losses with Max Scherzer at the time, and they just needed to say something to convince him to waive that no trade clause. I feel like that's my consensus is what happened, and that worked. And I have a feeling they're going to go after Shohei Ohtani. I just feel like this guy. I was hearing a lot of stuff. I watched this documentary that was it was subtitled. It was a documentary produced by some Japanese documentary channel or something like that they produce. And this guy, he seems like he's always pushing to up his game up to the next level. And I just feel like this guy might have no problem rehabbing from that Tommy John and stuff, because it feels like even when he's rehabbing, this guy is very professional about it. The greats just know how to handle it, even when a setback like an injury. And he just looks like one of those greats that's just gonna know how to just do this the right way and handle everything okay. He looks like, I feel like now he realized he wants to win, and I feel like he's starting to realize that Steve Cohen has the resources, has the money to put together a winning team, and I'm definitely for it. Get Shohei Ohtani coming to New York. And like I said, I would welcome him. As I said, the both of us would even volunteer to pick him up from the airport to drive him to the press conference. Not only would we pick him up from the airport, we would buy him an entire pie of New York City pizza.
Yeah, no doubt about that, man. I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. We do anything we can to get Ohtani in here, and just what you said too. These superstars, a guy like Ohtani, or even we were talking about Rodgers having that quick recovery from a potentially long-term injury. Ohtani, I agree with you. Ohtani could be one of those guys that attacks his rehab and gets back much quicker than anybody expects. Obviously next year, pitching-wise, probably isn't really in the cards. That's probably more for 2025. Maybe at the end of the year they try it, but I think, especially if he's playing and hitting next year like they expect him to, they might just wait to hold that off until the following season in 2025 when he's fully healthy and that arm is completely recovered. But if we look at history real quick, Dan, sorry, I just wanted to finish this up real quick. Look at Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper had Tommy John surgery and was back by the end of May, really. The timetable for players that get Tommy John surgery that are position players is much shorter than it is for a pitcher. So there's a chance that if Ohtani had the surgery done within the last week or two, like they're saying, that he could be back by Memorial Day next year, the end of May, early June.
Yeah, we could have a nice DH and a nice at behind Lindor and Alonso. So I feel like we'd be covered there. Plus, I also realized for this year also, Steve Cohen's also going to sign another pitcher, of course. Also, we have plenty of depth at free agency. I mean, we got Aaron Nola and even our old friend Zack Wheeler, who I would welcome back.
I would love Wheeler back, but he does have one more year under his belt with Philly, so he wouldn't be a free agent until after next season.
Oh yeah, I made that mistake. I think misread my stats, but Aaron Nola, I feel like we should definitely try to sign also in the offseason, because I feel that's in addition to our priorities this offseason sign Ohtani. We need to sign some starting pitching to sign Aaron Nola, increase our starting pitching depth. Also, some bullpen help would be nice. Nice little setup.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel one of those is probably, and we might get a little discount on this one. The David Robinson.
Yeah, there's already been talks about him coming back to the Mets. You're right about that.
Yeah, so he definitely wants to come back. So I feel like he'll be a little easy to negotiate the contract with, because he seems to have been bummed out. He's committed to, like, he feels unfinished business here in New York. Plus, I feel he'll thrive as a setup man to Diaz. Unlike this year, I feel like it was like a lot more. I feel like it's not his comfort zone. It's not his strength. It had to be the guy in the ninth. So,
and he was still the Mets' best relief pitcher all year. By far, David Robertson was.
Yeah, so he did very well. But I feel next year will be better for him, because he'll be back in his more strength, his comfort zone, if Diaz comes back to what we expect. So I really feel it's an important move we have to make also.
Yeah, no doubt about that, man. I totally agree. And I also think too that I think there's a big chance that we're gonna take a look, or I could see the Mets adding a pitcher or possibly more than one of those from the Milwaukee Brewers, where David Stearns was once the head man in charge. I really feel like, a lot of these guys who come from these places like to bring in players they're familiar with. I mean, even, we saw Aaron Rodgers doing that on a lesser scale with guys in the Jets like Randall Cobb. Just a few of the guys, Tim Boyle, backup quarterback, and just pieces like that Rodgers are familiar with and that made him feel better. And I feel like David Stearns could do the same thing with a couple of guys on the Brewers. It wouldn't surprise me to see him go out there and try to get his hands on a guy like Hader, who obviously just had a phenomenal season with the San Diego Padres. I could also see him going after a guy like Brandon Woodruff, or even though he's not a free agent this year, he's a free agent next year, and he's starting to creep near 30, and he's going to need a contract extension. Corbin Burns, with the Brewers' former Cy Young Award winner. He's been phenomenal. He really came on in the second half of the season. I could see David Stearns trying to target him for being a stabilizing force in that Mets rotation. So just keep your eye out for things like that. So,
I feel,
what do you think about that, Dan?
I feel those would be good pickups if we could pull it off. I feel one of the factors that could be in making some of those pickups possible, that would even put some of these players even more in their comfort zone. And I feel, even though this is a question mark, because Greg Console is like up in the air if he wants to manage next year or not, but I feel he might be the first candidate the David Stearns interviews, because he kind of knows him, so that might help. And if he's manager, I feel like that might make it an easy transition for even a city in New York with high expectations for a player like Corbin Burns to sign to be traded to the Mets. But he'll be there with a manager that has experience with.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, Dan. That also the manager they could look into could be from Milwaukee too, being Craig Counsell. Definitely wouldn't surprise me. Another guy who I heard his name being thrown around, and by the way, both of these guys, Counsell and the guy I'm going to mention right now, Boston Red Sox manager Alex Cora, are both under contract with their current organization, so it would take some form of compensation for the Mets to get them. However, I think if they would go either way with those guys, that would be phenomenal. Craig Counsell is a great manager, as it's shown over the last few years. He's gotten the Brewers to the playoffs 4 of the last 5 years. Alex Cora, obviously, is a championship-winning coach and a championship-winning manager at the big league level, so you really have to give him credit there. Former Met, he kind of knows the lay of the land here in Queens, so a lot of positives to both those guys. If you had to choose, before we move on from the Mets, Dan, if you had to choose between Alex Cora or Craig Counsell, who would be your preferred pick?
I just feel like maybe Alex Cora might be. He has that championship experience. He managed in a city with a team that always has high expectations in Boston. Even though I don't know how much the high expectations are because they did break a long championship drought, so I don't feel like there's not that burden of a championship drought in Boston. But the expectations are high, so I feel like he has that experience on a team with that the fans are following every little thing that happens and have this huge fan base. So I feel he'll pull up what happened in Boston. He'll have an owner like Steve Cohen that'll give him the kind of the players that he'll be able to, a contending team to manage. I feel like.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Good point. Very good point. And so as we're gonna keep moving along here, we got just a couple of minutes left right here at the end of the show. Just want to get into the Rangers for a couple of minutes before we end it. Rangers playing the Devils tonight in Jersey, down 4-2 after 2 periods so far. The Devils look like that explosive offense is still right there, bubbling right underneath the surface. And the Rangers still trying to play up. As I mentioned earlier, they got a goal from Will Cully. They also got a goal from Adam Fox. So it's always good to see, Foxy scoring and seeing the kid put one in. So the Rangers, they're still a work in progress right now. But so far, what have you liked that you've seen from the Rangers so far, Dan?
I just feel like the Rangers just look like they're at. And I feel like they're starting to gel together. I just feel like right now they're kind of in the preseason, so they're kind of still like it's still like working in the kinks, getting in that game mindset, like getting up to speed. I feel like right now in the preseason, but I feel once the clock turns and it's the start of the season, I feel like they'll be ready to go full force. I feel like.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, man. And it's just all about, turning the page to the regular season and seeing if they all gel. And one guy who's looking to gel was Jonathan Quick, who, he didn't play the whole game tonight, obviously, preseason. But he did give up a couple of them as goalie Jonathan Quick making his first start as a Ranger tonight. With our history against Jonathan Quick, if you don't recall, he was the winning goaltender in the 2014 Stanley Cup Championship Series that the Rangers dropped to the Los Angeles Kings. So it's a little weird seeing him in Ranger blue, right, Dan?
You've seen that. That scored the game-winning goal in that series. We remember how I said this joke with the Mets. We don't mention Yadier Molina's name. Similar to that guy's name, Martinez. We don't mention the name of that player on the Kings. We don't mention his name in our house.
Yeah, defenseman Alec Martinez. Ugh, that and then he just got another ring with the Vegas Golden Knights this year. So because he was on the team, I was actually rooting against them.
So I don't really want to mention that name, but yeah, at the same time, aside from that, I feel Jonathan Quick is a great pickup, a real admirable backup goalie to Igor. Also, I kind of thought it was kind of cool little that design on his goalie mask. I heard he based the design because somehow like when his kids were getting used to the mindset that he's playing for the Rangers now, I guess they got acclimated to the goalie song, the goal horn song. I thought that was a nice little nod to that goal horn song he has on his goalie helmet design.
I agree. Very cool. Very cool design that that he has on there. And yeah, it's cool seeing him there. I think he's going to provide a lot of experience to Igor throughout the season. Not that Igor necessarily needs it, but hey, it's always nice to have a vet back there to lean on, even when you're someone as good as Igor Shesterkin. The other thing that I liked was that, I heard a lot. I forget the kid's name, but whoever the goalie was for the Golden Knights during the bulk of that championship run they had last year, I heard him talking about his interactions with Jonathan Quick, because if you don't remember, Quick was traded by the Kings to the Knights at the deadline last year and was the primary backup for most of the playoffs. And that the kid really talked up how Jonathan Quick really helped him through that run, because this was a kid that really didn't have a lot of NHL experience at all, and he really leaned on Jonathan Quick. And I think, especially in a deep playoff run, it's a really good thing to have a guy like Quick, who is a potential Hall of Famer. He's in that realm, and he's one of the better American goaltenders of all time, right up there with Mike Richter. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how he provides leadership from the backup goalie role this year, right?
Yeah, I just feel like he's going about it well as a backup goalie. Plus, I feel like he's got that championship credibility that I feel like might go off on Igor, and hopefully get him to the next level, and hopefully some big spots, and could go a long way in the outcome of the season.
Yeah, very true, very true. And real quick before we head out of here too, I wanted to talk about Alexis Lafreniere. There was a lot of talk about him starting off on that top line with the offense as the right wing. With I believe he started with Panarin and Trocheck as the top line in the game on Friday against the Islanders, and that line was absolutely torched, giving up 3 goals in the first period. He got bumped down to the third line by the time the second period rolled around. I'm really worried about Alexis Lafreniere. He's got to find a way to light a fire under his ass this year, because if he doesn't watch it, man, this guy's going to go down as one of the bigger busts in NHL draft history. And I really don't want to see that happen. I still have a lot of confidence in him that he can turn this thing around. He's only 22 years old. But, man, you don't want to read too much into a bad start in a preseason game. But, boy, that was about as bad as it could get.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm just hoping that this is just a fluke that's happening in the preseason. He gets this out of his system and is ready to go come start of the season, I feel like.
Yeah, well said, man. I mean, you just got to hope that he shakes it off. And, we were talking about the term professional before. Well, Alexi, you're professional now. And I know, he came in the league as a 19-year-old. Well, you're really going to have to grow up quick, kid, because you just signed a 2-year bridge deal. And if you really want to cash in as the number 1 pick that you are on that next deal, you've really got to put up big numbers, because that was a rough start. So let's keep our fingers crossed that Alexi and the Rangers can figure it out and have a great year ahead of them, Dan. But before we get out of here, do you have anything that you like to plug for yourself?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter, or they call it now, Bobo103NC. Also Instagram, Bobo718DK. And on YouTube, there'll be some YouTube comment. There's some YouTube content that'll be put up there. Daniel Curlin. It's one word, Daniel Curlin on YouTube. That's all where you can find me.
Absolutely. Make sure to follow Dan everywhere on social media. As you can see, all of our handles at the bottom. Please take a look there. If you haven't followed us yet, give us a follow. We appreciate it. And also, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, subscribe to our Patreon. We're doing our full post game immediately following the games on Sunday. The Giants are at 1. The Jets are at 4:25. So you figure sometime around 7:30, we'll be going live. And by the way, we do our pre-tape shows every week. We tape them on Wednesday night. They come out on Thursday. But on our Patreon, everything we do on there is live. So if you want to see us live and in person, jump on our chat and interact with us in any way, please feel free to subscribe to our Patreon. It's only $5, and we really appreciate the support to everybody that already has taken the jump and helped us out. So I guess with that, we're going to call it a day. Thanks for tuning in and checking out the show this week for the Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer. This is my co-host, Daniel Bobo Carlin, and we'll catch you on Sunday, everybody, on Patreon. Have a great week.